recent years, I have become thoroughly convinced that feminism has severely hurt our society. It's done so primarily by selling 5 pernicious lies to women. So let's talk about those lies, and let's talk about what impact each lie has had on our society. And at the end, I want to talk about why feminism has been so successful in taking women ideologically hostage. Let's begin with lie number 1. Women can have sex just like men. This right here is the most dangerous lie that feminism has sold.
You know, every time I find a video where a woman has woken up and is spreading the news about the feminist virus that has infiltrated every single facet of our society. Started in the West, spread across to the East, North. I mean, it's every freaking where, right? But a lot of women just don't freaking get it until another woman points it out clearly. Because me and every other manosphere channel out there can shout it from the rooftops. We're only getting through to a very, very minor few women. And I can tell you, gentlemen, if the women don't wake up, this virus will keep spreading to the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. And it will ultimately lead to our demise as a species. Because part of the feminist push is, put off having kids. Passing on your DNA is not a priority. Your happiness is. Acting like men is. Yeah. So my friends, let's get into this video. This lady has some amazing points and she has clearly laid it out. And I just thought it was a great video for us to take a look at. I'm not going to play all of it, of course, because I want you guys to go over there and support her channel. And this channel is called Baggage Claim. That's a nice channel name. And this video is called The Feminist Narrative is Crumbling. Here is why. Okay, so let's get into it.
To millions of women. Feminism is always aiming for equality for women, and in many ways they have achieved that. They secured the right to vote, to have financial freedom, as well as the right to work. But as the battles have been won and equality has been achieved, the fervor for more equality has blinded them, where even inequalities that are biologically built in now need to be destroyed. This inequality is most apparent when it comes to sex. Sex is not the same for men and women, and it never can be because of the risks attached for each gender. Pregnancy, assault, and even getting killed are all real possibilities because at the end of the day, men are just stronger and more aggressive. And it's really hard to tell whether a man is going to honor you and take care of you because he's a good man versus a man who's just pretending to be a good man in order to have access to you. Previous generations solved this issue by recognizing sex as something very sacred because it has the power to create life. So they treated a woman's body and trust as inviolate and relegated this union between man and woman to marriage. Why? Because marriage offered a whole bunch of security that a casual encounter just couldn't. There was safety in the contract of marriage. The man was legally bound to his wife as well as to his children and had the societal and financial responsibility for them. This gatekeeping of sex was really effective because it forced men to have to work for that privilege through marriage. They had to prove to be worthy of a woman, to be worthy of someone's daughter. They had to be financially responsible, have a good reputation in their society, and show a willingness to step up to those responsibilities.
Now, what do we got today? Let me give you a taste of the problem that we currently have.
You have an ex out there that believes you never cheated on him, but you really did.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. I'm 100, so all my niggas know I cheated on them. Yeah. Yeah. I'm a Scorpio, bitch. They know I cheat. I don't know if he know I cheated on him or not. Yes. Yes. Yeah. I cheated though. And I be crying like I didn't.
The really crappy part is that he interviewed all black women and they all agreed. All the black women said yes. Just let that sink in for a while. I'm not saying that white women don't do it or Asian women don't do it as well or Indian women, Mr. Akash Singh. All I'm saying is, hey, it doesn't make the black woman look good, especially when she's boasting about it. All my niggas know that I cheated on them. Wow, that's the pool of women men have to choose from. And you're wondering why men are saying, hell no. No, no, no. I'm not dealing with any of these modern women in today's society. It's a crying shame, man.
Now, of course, there were instances of just terrible men pretending to fit the bill. But overall, the system worked really well in protecting women, but more importantly, forcing men to grow up. Now, fast forward to today, where in our society, one of the biggest problems that we're facing is that men seem to be caught up in this perpetual arrested development. Even well into their 40s and 50s, there are these instances of adult toddlers, and cities like San Francisco and New York have turned into Neverland, where people really just don't have to grow up. The combination of dating apps as well as the proliferation of hookup culture has ended that noble act of men courting women and honestly turned sex into a commodity. They have reduced sex down to a meaningless act. The push to have sex like men was aimed to empower women, to help them claim their sexuality and throw off societal expectations. But has it actually helped women? Aimed at freeing women, the sexual revolution has actually freed men to use women, all while telling women to feel empowered by being disposable. Like I said, this is the most dangerous feminist lie. Unfortunately, it's not the only one.
Yep, that's what we're talking about. The mere fact that every single one of those women that gentleman just introduced to us, who clearly stated that they cheated on their men that didn't know, shows you that a lot of these women just don't care. And it shows you another perpetual lie that women try to make men feel, that men cheat more than women. That is a bullshit lie that has been pushed on men to make us feel like we're the bad ones. But we know in today's modern society that women cheat more than men. And it's for this one simple fact. Women have more access to men who want to sleep with them versus men who are good enough to have access to a lot of women who want to sleep with him. Most women do not find most men attractive in order to sleep with them. Most men find practically every woman good enough to sleep with. Not good enough to marry, good enough to sleep with. And that's the reason why. And because we've removed the guardrails of shame, every woman is out there exercising that so-called freedom to do whatever she wants and be like a man sexually. It's insane. But what she's actually doing is being like the top men who are capable of getting punani whenever he wants. Only the top men can get sex on demand. Only top men. But every ordinary woman can get it when she wants it. This is a reality that we all have to deal with.
Russian women don't need feminism, they don't like it, and feminist movement will never spread in Russia. And let me explain you why. So the basics of feminism is women going against men. But in Russia, we already have a shortage of men. Believe me or not, my generation is still recovering after World War II, when all the men left and all the women were left behind with the hard work, working at the factories, raising kids, standing in line for hours for basic essentials like food, while women in America were basically locked up at the house as housewives. So now imagine that all the kids, especially boys, that was raised by single mothers, what kind of examples they had in front of them? That the mother have to work, after that come home and take care of kids, husbands. That's why in Russia we have such a problem with the aggressive and demanding men that want women not only go to work, but come home after work and take care of kids and man itself. And now you have the main idea of feminism, that women have to work even more. But Russian women want nothing more than a caring husband, providing for the family, helping with chores and raising their kids, which is a rarity for Russia. Plus, we still have a shortage of men. For every man, there are 3 to 5 women. And because of our political situation right now, we are still losing men. So that's why instead of women against men movement, we have women coming together to support and save the men that we have. Today, mothers of the soldiers, sisters, wives of the soldiers are main women, and they are protected by the government. In 2018, some activists and bloggers, more of my generation, started pushing this movement into mass. But as you can guess, they got shut down pretty quickly by the government. And now, not even women need it in our country.
Lie number 2. Women had to fight for the right to vote, while men were just granted the right to vote. Yes, women had to fight for the right to vote, but so did men. Voting is a pretty novel concept. For centuries, societies have been organized around monarchies, where one person, either the king or the queen, had all the power, while the people surrounding them were trying to have checks on that power. In the West, voting was first introduced in the 13th century, where a small percentage of the population were eligible to vote depending on land ownership. The right was slowly expanded, but even as late as 1832, in England, less than 10% of the population were eligible to vote. In colonial America, voting was restricted to land-owning men only, because property ownership meant you paid taxes, so there was this belief that if you paid taxes, you had stake in the society. Universal male suffrage did not exist until the late 1800s, where many men had to fight and die in wars before they were granted that right. So while women did secure the right to vote in the 1920s, it was only about 50 years after all men got the right to vote, around the 1870s, depending on when the states passed the laws. The idea that men just gave themselves all the power is a feminist myth. Both men and women had to earn that right to vote, because for most of history, people in power did not believe in distributing that power. This is not limited to America either. You can see that the timeline of universal suffrage is very similar across the world.
All right, let's look at it. In France, suffrage began 1791. All men could only vote in 1848, but it wasn't until 1944 that all women could vote. And the same across Germany, Canada, India, Australia, China, Russia, Denmark, Netherlands, Sweden. All of these countries had the same thing. And every woman thinks that this whole so-called patriarchy that was keeping them down, this imaginary boogeyman that feminism have created called the patriarchy, that is men fighting against women and trying to keep them down. While in all instances, average men never had any power. Non-landowners, men of no wealth, they had no power whatsoever. The power was only held and regulated by the aristocrats, the elites of the elites in our society.
Feminism was never about choice or freedom. It was about control. When women were given the right to vote, many thought it was a symbol of empowerment. But behind the scenes, it was a brilliant strategy orchestrated by the elites. Why? Because once women could vote against their husbands, the government gained two things: more power and more tax revenue. It was a strategic attempt to break up the nuclear family. Now husbands and wives didn't need to agree. They could simply live like roommates and have different political views, separate bank accounts, and different goals. And just like that, the government became the head of the home. I'm not ignoring that they were terrible men at the time mistreating their wives, but the laws that were set in place to keep husbands and wives united financially and politically were not because of the patriarchy. It's because American society valued Christian biblical principles at the time. Jesus said, "What God has brought together, let no man separate." But feminism encouraged women to separate from their household, their husbands, and their family. And now look at the fruit of feminism. 50% of marriages lead to divorces, with 70 to 90% of those being initiated by women. Nearly half of women are projected to be single and childless by the age of 30, and depression and anxiety has never been higher in both men and women. This is what freedom gave us, a generation of women chasing after independence, yet they are more lonely and less fulfilled more than ever before. So please do not fall for the feminist ideology.
No, the same thing is still occurring. It's just more hidden. Before it was out in the open. But in today's world, the same shit occurs, man. But now it's gone into organizations and companies. That's the only difference. It's all, the names are being hidden behind the veils of corporations and NGOs and structures that most of us don't even know or are even aware of. You think that your vote, so-called vote, is free? Man, if they want to bend that, destroy that, take it away, they could come up with all kinds of different excuses of why your vote didn't count. Very simple. I mean, restructuring the voting lines, etc. All of that is done strategically so that they can control the votes. Come on, guys. The illusion of freedom is just something that you all have to understand. You don't really have any freedom. It's an illusion, both males and females. But women have been taught and told that there's this invisible boogeyman called the patriarchy that's controlling us. No. both of us, males and females, who are in the middle and lower rung of society, have no power whatsoever. And even when you've grown huge and you think that you're too big for your boots, you can be destroyed. I.e., P. Diddy, Bill Cosby. Man, you name every single famous individual that grew way too big and then he was accused of something. I mean, you guys have to think about every single so-called powerful man that has been bought down by a sex act. It's always something sexual that he gets destroyed on because it's the number one tool that this society now accepts. If it's overseas and they want to destroy a man overseas or take out a president or a dictator, etc., it's always terrorism, supporting drugs, i.e. Hugo Chavez, i.e. Saddam Hussein. I mean, we in the West, and America has gone to wars over some questionable things, and we know that it cannot all be true. But it only comes out 10, 15, 20, 30 years afterward that all of that stuff wasn't really true. But by then, governments have changed, powers have changed. No one gives a shit. Most societies have very, very little memory of that event that took place. That's how people in power stay in power.
Meaning this was an evolution of trust in the people that all societies have had to go through. Lie number 3, women were locked up in the home by men until feminism freed them. This is the feminist myth that men had to lock women up in the home because they're afraid of feminine power. This is such a misunderstanding and disconnection from what the world used to be like, because life was really hard, not just for women, for everyone. For much of history, women stayed in the home out of pure necessity. Before electricity, washing machines, or running water, housework wasn't just about doing chores, it was survival. Hauling buckets of water, scrubbing clothes, making bread from grain that you milled yourself, sewing every piece of clothing that your family wore. These were all tasks that were absolute paramount to the family's survival. Women were doing all of this all while raising children without any modern medicine. So without antibiotics, hospitals, or vaccines. Meanwhile, it's not like the men were off to some cushy job in the boardroom. Instead, they were breaking their backs in the fields, in mines, in factories, just dealing with horrid working conditions. Or, let's be honest, dying in wars to protect their families as well as their nation. Everyone was fighting to survive. And then capitalism changed everything. The division of labor, which is one of the primary principles of capitalism, meant that people could now specialize, trade, and buy what they once had to make for themselves. This freed people up from survival work. And that freedom sparked the inventions that have built the world that we live in today. We are surrounded by these inventions. 200 years ago, I would have had to spend all my time churning butter, sewing clothes, making candles. Now, I just buy them. It would have taken me 2 days to do my laundry. Now I just press a button. And that time that was spent behind survival work can now be turned into more productive work, more specialized work. The same has been true for men as well. Machines have taken over all of that back-breaking work. So infrastructure work and building things has become so much easier. And people are now free to build, to think, and to create in ways that our forebears never could. Women have had biological limitations that have also kept them in the home. And you know what? Capitalism solved that too. In 1888, the first sanitary pad was created, which made it far easier for women to leave the house during their periods without the discomfort and the worry. So women were limited in the home because of survival, because of biology, but have been liberated by human ingenuity.
Yeah, liberated by human ingenuity, but most of those inventions were done by men. Even the sanitary pad was created by a man. I think it was an Indian fella. I think I saw a documentary on this. An Indian man. So we have to understand that the world that we have created for women have changed so much, but yet feminism have convinced women that they should still act like men and demand the same things that men want.
Older women lost their femininity trying to survive like men. Years of working, competing, and providing hardened them. They were told they didn't need a man, so they learned to think, move, and fight like men. They replaced grace with grind, softness with strategy, and patience with pressure. And after years of living that way, they forgot how to turn it off. Femininity. Once it's suppressed long enough, it starts to die. And when it dies, so does everything men are naturally drawn to. By their 40s, over 90% of women's eggs are gone. Their fertility drops, hormones shift, and their bodies start to prioritize survival over reproduction.
Now, so many of them out there, they're tired, they're broken, and they thought that the corporation had their back until now. Because every downturn in an economy, the people who suffer the most are the women. But if the women had stayed out of the workplace and actually depended on their husbands, by staying out of the workplace, their husbands would have earned more. They would have had the privilege of being housewives. And in today's modern society, they could easily stay home and do a little side job because most of the back-breaking work can now be done by washing machines and microwave ovens and, crock pots, etc. And she can just spend the rest of her time just making money on the internet, doing TikToks, etc., etc. But no, too many women have spread into the workplace, flooding the marketplace with bodies. So the price of wages have come down because we got double the amount of people in the economy competing for jobs. So now where a man would be making $10,000, $15,000 a month on a regular job, he's making $5,000 a month because too many women are in the workplace. He can't even support an existing family now. So both parties have to work in order to make that $10,000, $15,000 that could support one family. Both people have to work and cannot stop working, otherwise the family structure will collapse. And of course, the other part of this is that they've told women that, hey, you don't need to be a mother. Go out there and work. You don't need to start having kids until you're in your 30s. Guess what? Most women don't even get into a serious relationship until later on in their 30s. But in the meantime, she's spending a lot of money. She's living apart from a man. So now we need 2 houses, two cars, 2 refrigerators, 2 beds. Everything is sold in double. Corporations love this because more consumption. So yeah, the damage has been done. There's no way to reverse it, unfortunately.
By our forebears conquering nature and building a safer society, we women were freed by civilization itself. Lie number 4, marriage is slavery and children are a burden, and the only way that we could reach our highest potential was through our work. This cultural push has unfortunately created an epidemic of loneliness, nihilism, but worst of all, it has turned men and women into enemies. Those very same feminists now argue for government-paid maternity leave, subsidized childcare, and many other safety nets to improve the lives of women. But before feminism, a woman didn't need to turn to the government for help. Instead, she turned to her husband, to her family, to her community. Marriage is not this predatory institution where men get a servant for life. Instead, it has always been a contract between the sexes to team up and brave the challenging world. Men were the protectors who went out into the harsh world for resources, and women created the safety and comfort of the home where the man could retreat and they could raise children together. That was always the purpose of marriage, stability through partnership. It's on the bedrock of this partnership that every community is formed and every nation has stood.
And now what do we get? We get a woman who is not a good wife because she's stressed out at work. And if she's stressed out at work and she comes home and she's competing with you because you're making more money and she's making more money, it's a problem either way. And she's influenced by social media, which shows her the glamorous life of other people who are doing much better than her. And her brain becomes saturated with, I am missing out. Oh, my friends are traveling. Why are we not traveling? Oh, they got a bigger house than us. Why don't we have a bigger house? Oh, they got a nicer car. Why don't we have a nicer car? Oh, they got a designer, Louis Vuitton. Why? I need a Louis Vuitton. I need a red bottom shoes. I need. It's a constant competition amongst women. That's the problem that we have. So women are eternally unsatisfied with life. And she takes that out of the husband till eventually she gets to that point where she's not happy, and then couple that with no-fault divorce, and we got a recipe for disaster. Anyway, I'm going to lock it off there, guys. I'm glad women are starting to wake up. I hope this is a big wake-up call. I think as our economy gets worse and worse, we're going to see a lot more women actually realizing that they're in deep shit. Whether this economic downturn is going to be big enough and long enough to make women wake up and realize they need the opposite sex to get through this life, I don't know. I hope it is, but...
Constantly amazed how many women think feminism is a good thing. Women have been so lied to. Feminism was created to separate families. We valued our sense of independence so much that it took away our strong sense of family unit. Kids are being raised by government childcare. Women are working just as many hours as the men are, but are still expected to go home and take care of their children. It's a 24/7 job to be a woman living in America. This isn't the American dream. The American dream is living off of one income, the man provides, and we depend on them. The American dream would be women taking care of themselves, the home, their children, their husband. Women are meant to be gardening, cooking good food, nurturing the ones that they love. That's when women get a strong sense of self, and when they're in their true feminine energy, that's when they thrive.
So many men have been turned off. I don't know if it's going to make any difference if these women wake up, because so many men have been either burned or they watch someone that has been burned. And one thing men know, if it can happen to them, it can happen to you. So listen, I'm going to put the link to this video in the comment section so you guys can go and click on it. Hey, it's a start. I always say, share these videos to other women so that they can wake up and see other women who have woken up. And hopefully we can start something, because the feminist messages have gotten so freaking blatant and out, and there's so much of it that if women don't see any counter messages, it's impossible for them to change, because that message become their truth, and that's because that's all they see. That's what the algorithm is feeding them day in, day out. But if you send these messages like mine to them via, let's say, WhatsApp or any other thing, don't show it to them on your phone. You got to send it to them, so when they click on it and watch a portion of the video, because they rarely can get through all of my videos, right? It's a hard pill to swallow. At least the algorithm will say, let me start sending more content like this to them, so that they can start to see a counter narrative. Make sense? Let me know what you guys think. Okay? So guys, listen, I'm going to end it there. Subscribe if you haven't already. Like this video on the way out. Go over and support this channel, please. And of course, until tomorrow, my friends, remember, whenever in doubt, always, always ask an older man. I'll see you soon. Cheers.